Okay, before we do this particular program, you've got to make sure you've set up your ODBC JDBC connection as in a previous YouTube tutorial. So this one is a simple JDBC. We have standard comments at the top, and you'll notice right here we must include the java.sql package in the import java.io. We have a class called JDBC and we have a main. And notice we have a try statement because when you're working with SQL and JDBC objects, it throws exceptions, and we got to be able to handle those. So the first thing we're going to do is declare a result set, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the first thing we need to do is establish a connection between our program and the database. The database can be on our computer, or it can be located across the country or across the world, actually. So the first thing we need to do is like run a wire. Think of us running a cable between our program into the database. And this piece of code right here dynamically runs the Sun JDBC ODBC ODBC driver. So it dynamically loads that into memory. Another choice is a two-step process. You do the import up here, this import up here, and you say new JDBC ODBC driver. I believe in efficiency, so we are just going to do it in one statement. Now the next thing we need to do is like call the database, establish a connection. This is the very similar to us picking up our phone, dialing a number, and connecting to the person we wish to speak to. In this case, we want to talk to the database. And you notice right here we create a URL. And remember, Java was written to be run on multiple platforms and over the web. So URL stands for Universe Resource Locator. It's like a web address. So in this case, we're doing JDBC ODBC : and you should recognize this name from the ODBC driver we set up. And if you were doing this in the real world over database, you'd have the IP address and the port number that you were talking through. So what we do is we create a string with the connection information. The driver manager, which we loaded up here, we make the connection, and we instantiate a connection object called client. And then what we need to do is have an individual statement, and the statement is what we send over to the database for execution. And so we have the connection, we have the statement, and we come down here and we create a simple select statement, select every column from the employee master, ordering by name, and then we take that query, which is in a string, and we put it to the execute query method in the statement. So we pass the query to the statement is linked to the connection is linked to the driver, and it executes. We put out the headings to the screen, and if you remember the /t right here, it just creates tabs. And we do a while loop, and what we do is, actually let me back up here. Right here at line 52, once we execute the query, we're asking the database to return a result set. So we shoot over an SQL statement to the database, and it returns back to us a result set. Think of a result set as like a box that has all the records that we requested from our SQL statement. And keep in mind, a result set could have 0 records up to n being 1, 1,000, 100,000, a million, depending on what conditions are met by our SQL statement. So it's one to many, or possibly none to many. So we come in here and we say, hey, client, result set client, do you have a record for me? And that's what the .next method does. It returns a true false. And if it's true, we come into here and we put out to the screen and we say result set client get string, and what this means is column 1 in the SQL statement. We put the tab, then we concatenate the third column, and then we do the second column. So that puts out number, sex, and name. And keep in mind, number is column 1, name is column 2, and sex is column 3. We're just mixing it up here a little bit. And when you're done with the loop, we do a close statement, and that closes down the statement, and we're pretty much done except for our exception handler. And here's a generic exception handler. Let's compile this and let's run it, and there's my records that I asked for, and notice the /t tabs them, and sorted by name.